Hello, peeps. So it has been forever, I feel, since I've done any podcast episodes. And there's a reason for it. I promise I didn't just go ghost and decide I wasn't going to do this. I actually had a goal of having 10 episodes by the end of 2019. And as I started to write down ideas and write down content and start figuring out who I wanted to speak to, I realized that I really needed to sit down and reflect on what messages I wanted to send to you guys. Things were starting to pop up and it was starting to get so hectic, and I was starting to have so many guest speakers come in and do recordings with me that I didn't know what to put out next. So that's why I took, I guess, like a little sabbatical, and I've been dealing with my own mental health things, which I'm sure, as you can see from the title of this podcast, that's what we're going to be talking about today, because Lord knows that I like to talk about mental health stuff, and I feel like there's a lot that we need to discuss. So I actually recently, and by recently I mean like a week ago, just went in and got a full evaluation done and came out with some shocking and scary stuff. But more so, what I want to talk about besides just my own experience is kind of put out, let's say, rules of behavior. How to handle it for yourself, but also for the people who are there as a support system for someone who has mental health needs, how to be that support system. Because I have found throughout my own journey, I'm very disappointed in some of the people in my life and the way that they try, but maybe don't try or fail to support me. And as I started to talk about that on my social media platforms, especially Instagram, you guys are so engaged on Instagram, and I love it so much because it's been validating to me that the struggles that I have aren't just me, and other people go through it too. But at the same time, I don't like that anyone has to go through it. So with that being said, let's get this thing started.
Welcome to Sips and Giggles. I'm here to offer all of my lack of filter, real deal BFF services. I'm talking from life crisis like, oh my God, I think I need to quit my job, to much less extreme examples like, oh my God, what should I eat? You can call your friends for the fluff and the distractions, that's fine. But I am here to deal the 3 a.m. heart-to-heart, no tolerance for the bullshit level conversation. So pour it up, whatever gets you going. It could be $7 boxed wine, coffee blacker than your soul, or for me, pre-workout, because for whatever reason, it makes me all preachy and chatty and in touch with myself. But get a good glass full because you are in for a ride.
All right, peeps. So as I had mentioned, I myself have gone in for an evaluation just to get things put together professionally. I've been seeking help. I've been getting help and been medicated for a while now. You guys know that my major depression, my social phobia or social anxiety, my general anxiety, I've been addressing all of those things for quite a while. And part of me addressing those things is going in for therapy regularly. Someone who is in the field myself, I definitely feel like if you can find value in speaking to another person, if that is your way of coping, because it's not that for everyone, but if your way of coping involves, communication with another person and feedback, not so much on, what they think you need, but more so feedback of things you should think about, therapy is the way to go. So I've been going regularly, and I really do enjoy the relationship that I have with my therapist, and she had brought up that it was time to go get reevaluated and really figure out what was going on because she had some suspicions of bipolar. And it's funny because it was something that I had been thinking about too. Now, a little background. I know you guys have heard me talk about this in previous podcast episodes, but I really go through it. I have what I like to call my season where my depression really kicks in, partially because of seasonal affective. Fall and winter do not do me well, but also partially because there are just a few months packed in together where all hell broke loose. Starts off end of September, beginning of October, when everything with my mom happens, and then November, we have my best friend passing, and then the holidays are really hard, and then February is my birthday and my mom's birthday, so usually between the end of September and up until the middle of February, that is what I call my quote-unquote season, and that's when things really affect me. But I realized this year that my season was doing some odd things, and instead of just being low, I had some some highs that left me exhausted afterwards. So needless to say, I kind of like low-key agreed with her. Obviously didn't want to say, yeah, that's true. I wanted to have high hopes that it was something else. Didn't really want to add to, my list of diagnoses, but I made the appointment anyway. And as you guys know, anyone who's gone for an evaluation, it takes forever to get an appointment with a psychiatrist to get an evaluation done. So there was a good, I want to say, month gap in between when I scheduled the appointment and when I actually went in. And in that month, it was just fear and anxiety and overthinking. I feel like a lot of us go through that where, you've known yourself for so long and you've been going through the things that you've been going through for a while, but the thought of having to sit down and tell another person about all of those things is anxiety provoking. You don't want to sound like you're whining too much. You don't want to sound like you're just describing the diagnosis that you assume that you're going to get. And the overthinking, guys, is just insane. So for me, someone in the field, you guys know I got my bachelor's degree in psychology. I really focused on counseling at that time because I want my LPC in the future. That's like the big goal. And now I'm in my master's program for applied psychology. I almost had to kind of keep my knowledge on the back burner because I didn't want to overwhelm myself. And in a way, I used it to kind of help myself, but it just got sticky because I knew so many people, so many stories, and so much, obviously, like statistics and information for both ends, for people who were highly functional and also the things where it got in the way of people and the way they live their life and the way that they see themselves. So I started having this back and forth, this big identity crisis, which I've been going through even before my therapist had brought this up, trying to figure out who I am, what my path is going to be in the future, how people are going to perceive me, how I'm going to be able to help people, and what qualifies me to help people. Not so much in like on paper qualifications, but like how can I help people and they take me seriously? So now to have this thing put in my path, it made me question everything. It made me question whether or not my job was going to trust me to, complete my responsibilities. It made me question whether or not my relationship was going to continue to get stronger or if it was going to test my relationship. It made me question whether or not people were going to believe me. I've always been someone who has been very outspoken about my mental health and my needs and my struggle, but also my survival, because I want to be able to share with you guys the reality of mental health in and of itself. And sometimes it gets hard, but I like being able to put it out there because what that does for me and for other people is it creates a community where you can see that survival is real and that the struggle does not stop from the survival. So it was just a lot of back and forth thoughts, and it was scary, but I got through it. And then I went in for my evaluation this past Monday. So this episode comes out on Sundays. So it's been almost a week at the point where you might be hearing this since I've gotten my evaluation. My evaluation was nice. I've always had this fear of sitting down with a psychiatrist and having like that lay on the couch and sit with the notepad, and that's exactly what I did. He put me on a couch. Granted, I was sitting, not laying down. He took out his legal pad and his pen, and I could feel the anxiety starting to build up, but then we got into conversation and it just all dropped. And for me, I guess it was a little bit easier, and I definitely suggest this for anyone who has any kind of anxiety when it comes to sitting down and talking about their struggles. I knew that once I started to feel vulnerable, once I started to feel like I was maybe whining, once I started to feel like I was saying too much negative things about myself, that I would start taking away from the things that we needed to talk about. So what I did in preparation for this eval is I wrote out a list of all of the concerns that I had for myself, all of the red flags that had come up, all of the things that I knew were not supposed to be happening or not supposed to be happening as often, so that way I could share with him. And I told my psychiatrist, hey, I have this list. I'd like to keep it here. These are all the things that I'd like to just make you aware of. And it made it a lot easier for me because I didn't feel as emotionally attached to pulling all these things up as I was answering his questions. So definitely if you're anxious, that's one thing to do. It's really good. And, even if you feel like you might be hiding things, you could print it out so the psychiatrist knows that they could check it if they feel like you're not telling them everything. So I ended up, after the evaluation, which, it was much more comfortable than I expected. I was anxious, but I I feel like anyone would be entering an environment like that. And I did keep in mind that, with a suspicion that I did have a mood disorder, what the psychiatrist got from me on that day would be different from what he would get another day. So I tried to just best represent myself in a general fashion and not just with the emotions that I had at that moment. So I ended up getting, this is so strange to share publicly. This is the first time I'll be saying it, not even on any of my other platforms. I ended up getting a diagnosis with both personality disorder. So I got borderline personality disorder and the way that he had worded it was traits of bipolar depression. So it's an odd in between where I have some styles of bipolar, but not quite fitting all of the criteria, but we're still going to move forward in addressing and treating both. So both the borderline personality disorder and the bipolar depression. And then also moving forward in addressing the smaller things that I have, like my social phobia, my OCD, things like that. So things of that nature. And I remember leaving that appointment, I think this feeling will never ever leave me. Leaving that appointment with a list of diagnoses longer than I expected to go in and receive. I expected to go in and receive this thing, and I had been preparing myself just for bipolar, and to come out with a longer list and more concerns from him and things that I hadn't even considered was a huge shock. And all of those fears, all of that anxiety, all of that overthinking that I had done within the month before this appointment had come started to flush back in. And at this point, I knew that I was going to struggle with being able to help myself cope, so I needed to reach out to my support system. And I did. So I reached out to many different parties in my support system, and over the next few days, just made sure that I went out and I spoke to the people that I knew had the best intentions for me and were really willing to take care of me. But I have to say, for me, and I should have known better because it's been like this in the past with my depression. It's been like this in the past with my social anxiety as well. It was difficult because the people that I expected to support me and the ways that they tried to support me, I guess, were almost ignorant in some fashions. And I think that there is this expectation as someone on the other side who is just providing the support and providing someone's, an area to lean on, someone to vent to, whatever. They have this expectation that they can fix your feelings with words, or that they can discredit the professional that you saw with what they know about you. And I do know that sometimes you'll get misdiagnosed in this field. It happens often, just like it happens anywhere else. Like I said, the person that you present to the psychiatrist or whoever is doing your evaluation, it might not be who you are in a general day-to-day fashion because of anxiety, because maybe you do have some mood instabilities. I get all of that, but what I received was far from what I was happy with. So what I did is I also reached out to you guys out in the public, and I went out on Instagram and I put up a poll asking, what is the most, not ignorant, but for lack of better words right now, ignorant. What's the most ignorant thing somebody has ever said to you in response to your mental health? And the responses that I got were disgusting, to say the very least. Absolutely disgusting. So I want to first and foremost share with you that, there are some people in your life who are meant to be support systems for certain things. People who can love you and help you through heartache, who can love you and help you through physical illness, but when it comes to mental health, just do not understand how to help you, or are not willing to learn what you need, or to learn how they have mistaken their understanding. So I want you to know that even if you are receiving the negative things that I am going to list through right now, don't think that it's because, there is something wrong with you. Don't think it's because they're right. Don't think it's because you're in over your head trying to help yourself. Don't think it's because you're just not helpable, period, and there's no way to support you and now you're all alone. You're absolutely not. And I guess now is the best time that I could put in this little slight disclaimer. I don't know who you are on the other side of this podcast. I don't know what you're going through at the moment. I don't know what your support system looks like, but I do know that I am here for you And I want you to know that. And I mean that in the most sincere fashion, like cross my heart, hope to die, pinky con besito, like I mean it totally. If you need someone and there's no one you feel can hear you out the way that you need, you come find me. And my email, you guys know my email is caseychaz@gmail.com. You can reach me there. If you want to like hit me up on Instagram, it's casey.androse on Instagram. There are plenty of places to find me. Find me somewhere and message me. And I don't care. You could like first DM, just write me a book. Whatever you need, I promise I will be there, because I understand that it's so difficult for us to get the right support, and it's so difficult for us to find people who are willing to understand what we are going through instead of just allowing their judgments and assumptions to put up this wall. So with all of that being said, I just wanted to go through some of the things that I received when I was looking for support, and that you guys shared with me that you've received when you were looking for support, or when you shared that you had, mental health needs. Just an FYI for anyone out there who doesn't have mental health needs, but, is a support system for someone else, these are the things to 101% not say. So I'm going to read off the list now, and hopefully not vomit in my mouth, because some of these things are just that extreme. First things first, you never, ever, 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 ever tell someone, you'll be all right. You'll be okay. It'll pass. It's no big deal. Sleep it off. That's like a big no-go. And I think that for a lot of people, it's not even that they're intentionally trying to write you off or write off your issues, but more so they don't know what else to say. So you will be okay is the first thing that comes out, because in their minds at that moment, it feels like that's like a support of like showing you that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and you will survive. And guys, that's just not how it gets received on the other end. There's a way to tell someone that, they have personal power in which they can push through this, and you can tell them, you can. I know you can. This is why I know that you can, but never just write them off by saying you'll be all right. The next one is everyone has some degree of whatever. Well, everyone has some degree of depression. People get sad, people get depressed. It's a thing, you feel it more often. Everyone has some degree of OCD. I really like to keep my car clean. That in itself, coming out of someone's mouth and receiving it as someone with mental health, is like a huge slap in the face. It's telling them, you're just like everyone else, and you're just complaining a little bit more about it, or you're trying to make a big deal out of something that everyone else has. Tone it down. You will be all right. It's not received properly. The next thing is, well, it's a spectrum. That diagnosis is really extreme, but it's a spectrum and you're way closer. Like, you're barely even on it. Again, just no. Unless you are the doctor, you don't get to place us on how severe our needs are. It's not as bad as it could have been. I feel like you just don't say this to anyone ever when they come to you for support. You wouldn't tell someone who has, bronchitis, well, it's not as bad as it could have been. You could have had pneumonia. It's not as bad as it could have been. You could have died. You just don't. That doesn't make anyone feel better at all. Ever. This next one is like one of my least favorites ever. And this is something that I've received, and this is something that a lot of you guys said that you've received. But you just can't come up to someone and be like, well, I don't see that in you. I think your doctor's wrong. I don't see that in you. I really, you're always so happy. You're always so outspoken, and you start to rattle off all of the things that you see, all the positive traits that you see in a person. And I think what a lot of people don't understand about us who have mental health needs is that what you see as an outsider is more than likely something that we put on so that we can function as a human day to day. So you might see me being social, you might see me smiling on the same day where I'm having a depressive episode, because I still need to force myself to do those things. And it's really difficult. Also, coming from someone who has extreme ups and downs, what you see when, I walk into work at 9 o'clock in the morning isn't what's happening when I get home at, 5 o'clock in the evening and finally in my safe place. So by saying, what I see in you doesn't match this diagnosis, so I can't be true, is complete bullshit. You never know what people are going through behind closed doors. And because they want to protect both themselves and they want to protect the people in their world, whether it be their family, their colleagues, just like the outside in general, they are doing that for a reason. It doesn't mean that the other stuff behind the closed doors does not exist. Be careful with the pills. This one comes up time and time again, and I have to be completely, totally honest. When I first got my original diagnoses for my depression and my anxiety, and they had given me a script for medication, I was scared shitless because I remember all I could hear over and over again from different people was, how antidepressants makes you a zombie, and it's so hard to get out of bed, and it sucks the emotions out of you, and I was so afraid of turning into that person, and I think that it might have scared me away from accepting medication earlier, and I should have taken the medication earlier. But guys, what I have to tell you is, A, you can't tell people, you can't make people afraid of the medication that has such a huge chance of helping them. Taking meds, especially for stuff like this, is a very personal, unique, person-by-person experience, and something that could have ruined your life could save mine. And I think that in a lot of ways, we automatically assume that medication for mental health needs turns you into an emotionless zombie, but though that might have happened to one person, for another person, it could give them control. It could give them clarity, It could give them peace. And that's something that we need. And I was scared shitless. Getting this new diagnosis, I was scared shitless. They're putting me on antipsychotics. They're putting me on mood stabilizers. And I'm looking at the names of these medications and then the side effects of these medications. And then hearing people all over telling me not to take the medication. Don't get addicted to the medication. Don't become dependent on the medication. The doctors are just labeling you differently so that they can push medication because they get commission on the medication and all these negative things, when I know that this singular pill is supposed to help me feel okay. And yes, I am heavily holistic in my life. I do a lot of woo-woo. I love my crystal healing. I love my sprays, my oils. I love the routines that I have for myself. I, very rarely take medication for pain. But just because I am a holistic person, just because people use those routes does not mean that medication cannot help. And it doesn't mean that it's not an option. And as someone who is supposed to support a loved one with mental health needs, you need to be able to accept that sometimes the medication is the best option for them. Letting go of comments like that, by letting it slip out of your mouth and into their psyche, you are allowing them to fear something that can save them. Allow them to take their path. And if you are worried about the effects of the medication, instead of saying don't get addicted, instead of saying don't take it, it's going to turn you into a zombie, promise them that you are going to do right by them. And let them know if you see things changing while they're taking the medication. And also let them know that you will be understanding, because there's a good chance that, it's a foreign object in their body. It's something that their body and their mind needs to adjust to. So there's a good chance there will be some mood swings before everything settles out. Instead of making them afraid of all of these things, let them know that you will support them through it and that you promise you will be there to make sure that they are living the happiest life they can live, instead of making them fear something that can give them that happy life. Now, my last thing, and the thing that drives me absolutely insane, is, as someone with mental health needs, when I go to my support system, when I go to Dan, when I go to my dad, when I go to my family, my sister, my brother, my best friend, a good colleague of mine, when I go to my therapist, when I, speak to groups online, when I'm opening up about my mental health, I am not opening up. I'm not coming to you to discredit the doctor that I work with. And that's something that majorly frustrates me. And I think that I'm not the only one. I think it majorly frustrates others as well. That person that I sat down with and paid hundreds of dollars to tell all of my things to, that person who has hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt for the certificate, the degree on their wall that makes them a doctor to be able to do these things. I go to them because I have trust in the system and belief in the system. I go to them because I know that is the next step that I need to take to find my peace, to find my solace. I go to them because I know that they can hand me what I need to be able to identify the next step that I need to take for myself. Even if I wasn't going for an evaluation to get medication, which was not my intention. I wasn't just going so that I could get medication. I was going so that I could know. I'm feeling all of these things. I'm having all of these issues. I want to be able to put all of these things and these issues into a box and be able to understand that these things are happening to me because I have this disorder, because I have this style, whatever you want to call it. They're happening because of this. And now I know how to address it. Now I know how to regain control. Now I know that it's not all in my head. It's not always that we're going for medication, but we are going to this person to be able to figure out how we can better ourselves. And I think that some people forget that as a support system, as much as we may trust you, as much as we may love you, your place in our life, your place in our path, your place in our healing is not to diagnose or call a misdiagnosis. And by telling someone that the diagnosis that they finally receive that can in so many ways help them move forward because they finally know how to address it, and it almost validates that the feelings they've been feeling are real, by telling them that, nope, that's a lie, that sends them steps and steps and steps backwards. There's no forward progress. There's no movement. That's sending them backwards, telling them, nope, you got to figure it out again. Now you're just a few $100s in debt and really frustrated. Don't do it. Now, a big thing that I got in the Instagram poll or question or whatever it is when you guys responded to me was stop seeking attention. And it hurts my soul that this is something that people receive in response to their mental health. You're just doing it for attention. You're fine. Stop whining. You're fine. You're just trying to make an excuse for being lazy. You're fine. Honestly, guys, and I mean this in the most loving way because I have had some very important people in my life say this to me in the past. If that is the way that they are going to address you, they are not part of your support system at this time. They may be in the future. Maybe they'll realize that they need to educate themselves a little bit more. But as of right now, if someone is coming to you and telling you that your mental health needs are nothing but a plan to receive attention, nothing but an excuse to cover up other negative qualities that you can easily fix, you need to cut them out of that part of the equation and accept that they cannot help you at this moment. Because that right there is a toxic attachment and should not be part of your support, should not be part of your path to move forward. So now that we're done with the icky stuff, I just wanted to talk about some resources for people who have new diagnoses, mental health struggles. Maybe you didn't even get diagnosed and that's totally okay. I put off getting diagnosed for so long. Part of it was because I couldn't afford it for a very long time. Part of it was because the people that I surrounded myself with just weren't very accepting, so the less official it was, the better. But there are still so many resources for you. And please, as much as you can, take care of yourself. Outside of, taking the pill every day, outside of going for your scheduled appointments, make sure that you are doing things, personal things, things that fit your style, things that fit your personality, your way of doing things. Do things to help yourself so that you're not dependent on any one thing or one person to help you out. Now, my first thing for medication is to make sure that you're tracking it, especially if you're on a new medication, especially if you're scared. And Lord knows I've got pages and pages worth to track mine. Get a journal, track that you're taking it every day, track how you're feeling, do a mood tracker, check for the side effects that are listed, see how often you're receiving those side effects, because that makes the conversation that you have with your doctor when you go back in for a check for your medicine so much more detail oriented, because you're not saying I've been feeling blah, you're saying on these days or for this percentage of the time I have had these side effects, my mood has been on this side. I'm sorry if you hear my dog barking in the back. All right, sorry, I addressed that. Hopefully it's a little more quiet now, but you never know. The next thing, guys, find a support group. And this doesn't mean people who are willing to support you because they see what you're struggling in, like an outsider, but find people who have the same struggles, who have the same diagnosis, maybe people who just have the same needs to help them cope. Because being around other people who can understand firsthand what you're going through makes everything a lot easier to deal with in the moment. For me, even before I had all of these diagnoses and I was just addressing my general anxiety, I found that I needed a group of peers to be with. I needed people to talk to who could talk back to me with knowledge and experience rather than just saying, oh, I read about it online, or people who, a doctor or a therapist. So that's what I did. And every week now, as often as I can, I go and for an hour and a half, we talk. And sometimes it's talk just like a group of friends. Other times it's open conversation about someone who needs support. But by having that, it's so much easier for me to know that even if I'm having a hell of a week, even if I'm having the worst week ever, I have this consistent time where I can be with people who love me, who understand me, and who can help me in a capacity that, Dan or my dad can't do. And if you can't find someone or a group in person, if you don't want to go to a group in person, if it's not comfortable for you or whatever it may be, it doesn't have to be in person. Go online. I'm a big fan of Facebook groups, and I think it all stems from when I was a coach. Because I just liked being able to connect with other people who were like me. But guys, literally go online, go into Facebook, type in your diagnosis even into the search bar, and support groups will come up. Be willing to include yourself in those groups. It's the same thing. Having other people who can talk to you and who you can talk to, and being able to almost exchange help and love and support and empathy is so good for just moving forward with your soul and addressing the things that you need to address without feeling like you need to explain it to someone or reword it so that a person can understand or so no one gets offended. It's a place where you can be open and honest about what you are going through and what you need to help you move forward. My next thing, guys, and this is a big one, I didn't even think about this until recently when I had my last evaluation, read books. And I don't mean like read books about your diagnosis per se, about your mental health needs. I mean read books by authors who struggle with the same thing that you struggle with. I think for me, a big thing was just seeing that people can function as normal human beings and seeing that people can be respected at a higher level, even going through the things that I'm going through. And it sounds really silly, and I know that in my field, I'm supposed to believe in everyone's ultimate power. But as a human being, I have those fears of this holding me back. But even just watching movies with actors who have bipolar disorder, reading books with authors who have borderline personality disorder, being able to do these things, seeing people who have social phobia go up and make TED Talks or like these big inspirational talks that go viral on Facebook just makes me feel so good and kind of settles me back into just being. I brought this one up before, but I'm going to repeat it again just because I feel like it's so important. Please, if your style of coping involves another person and talking or just like being able to talk it out, maybe that other person doesn't even talk, find a counselor. Find a counselor who can help you just with maintenance. It's so important to maintain yourself and to move forward with the things that you promised you would do for yourself to take care of yourself, if that makes any sense. If you're into it, mindfulness and holistic measures have helped me tons. Read about it, find the style that works best for you. I feel like I talk about meditation in every podcast, but I'm going to bring it up again. 10 minutes of guided meditation every morning, like using the insight timer or searching up what you need on YouTube. Just 10 minutes of allowing yourself to sit in that moment and listening and following that activity in itself could be so good for you. And just the focus on grounding and being present in mindfulness practices is so important for people with mental health needs, because it is so easy for us to run away with our thoughts. It's so easy for us to be pulled from reality. So having that ability to ground yourself back at any given moment, though I say practice because that's what it is. It's practice. It's not something that you could just automatically do. But having that ability and being able to bring yourself back within yourself, being able to kind of shut out the thoughts sometimes when you're getting overwhelmed or when you're overthinking, it's a huge, what I like to call, superpower to have. And it's definitely worth the practice. It's definitely worth taking time to discover and rediscover yourself. The last thing, guys, and this is for people with mental health needs, and honestly, for those of you who are supporting someone with mental health needs, set support expectations and try to educate your people. You know, you have to be fair. I say all of this, and we talked before about all the negative and ignorant things that have been said to us with mental health needs, but honestly, at the end of the day, there are some people who just won't be willing to understand. It might be forever. It might be within that moment because they don't want to admit it to themselves. And then there's just some people who just don't know. They don't have the information. They haven't been resourceful to find the information. Maybe the information that they do have is wrong. And they're kind of afraid to accept and admit that they don't know enough beyond what media portrays as mental health needs. Media will automatically, everyone will automatically assume that you have this, you're crazy. Or you have this, you're trying to kill yourself. And 9 times out of 10, there's no in between. So be real with your support system about what you need. One thing that I share with Dan very early on is that when I come to him for support, I'm not looking for solutions. When I'm coming to him and I'm telling him I'm having a really bad day and my depression is really hitting hard, I'm not coming to him and asking for him to rattle off a whole bunch of ideas as to how I could get happier. And for some people, that might be what helps them, but for me, it's not. But the thing is, instead of coming to him for support and him always automatically going to providing solutions and then me getting aggravated and maybe not turning to him anymore, just by expressing that to him, it's easier for him to know that he's taking care of me the right way because he knows what I need, and it's easier for me to know that I can go to him because he knows what I need. So set those guidelines, let everyone know what helps you, what doesn't help you. Maybe you don't know yet, but they can help you try. Set those expectations, educate people. I don't know, guys. I just feel like every day is a little step closer to fighting the stigma, and we're doing all of these things to educate all of the people in the world and be very outspoken and very public. Take care of yourself, address your support system, and then move outward. So I really, really appreciate you guys listening in on this podcast episode. Like I said in the title, it was going to be a rant because I just had a lot to say. I am moving forward. I'm going to work on my borderline personality and my bipolar and my OCD and my depression and my social phobia and my anxiety and all the other things on my list because I know that those things aren't my identity. I just know that they're things that I have to live with and live through. And like I said, if you ever need anything, any type of support aside from a hug, because 9 times out of 10 you guys probably aren't close enough for that, please come find me, talk to me. Again, my email is caseychaz@gmail.com. I don't check that quite as much as I check my DMs though, so you can find me on Instagram, casey.annrose on Instagram, and let's just chat because I promise this road is so much easier when you don't feel alone in it. And I want you guys to know, no matter where you are in your own journey, no matter what struggles you're going through, no matter what type of support system you may have or maybe you don't have, you are so loved and you are so strong. And whatever you're going through right now, you are going through because you can handle it. And I know it sounds fucking terrible to hear now because maybe you're in the depths and it feels like you're one small thread away from not being able to handle it. But I can see the power within everyone around us. And you will find something that helps you cope, that helps you move forward, and that helps you be able to come out on the other side and say, I survived, and I can help other people survive as well. And I will continue to survive every day for the rest of my life. I'm so proud of you, whoever it is on the other side of this podcast, for taking the time to listen, either for yourself or for someone who you are supporting and loving. I will talk to you guys soon. Bye, everyone.